All right, this is going to be a walkthrough of how I tie one of my top steelhead flies. It's not a fly I can lay any claim to. I was fishing a few years ago on the Salmon River and ran into a guy, and he gave me a couple of these. I put a little bit of my own spin on it to make it the way that I tie some of my other stoneflies, but that's kind of what we're going to have at the end. A couple of aspects of it that I never really would have done myself, as far as, in terms of like the rust color and the throat. But the guy gave me this fly. He says it does really well, and he was right. It's been one of my top steelhead flies ever since, so I'm going to show you how to tie this. In the vise, I've got a size 10 curved nymph hook. Thread-wise, I'm going to go with a UTC 70 in white. I like the white head on this fly. So I'm going to get my thread going probably about maybe halfway-ish or so down the hook shank. A stonefly is segmented a little differently than a mayfly nymph, so we're not gonna start up near the hook eye here. And I want to try to make sure that I map out my measurements with my thread. And what I always do with my stoneflies, and as I'm doing this, this is how I tie pretty much all of my stoneflies. The starting step is I always lay down a triple thread base. So I go down towards the back towards the front, and then back down to the back again. And the reason why I do that is that if you look at a stonefly, the tail fibers on a stonefly don't really splay out the way they do on a mayfly nymph. They kind of come off the body a little bit more straight, so I like a little bit of a thicker body on a stonefly so that the biots kind of stick straight out. Honestly, in the world of things that really just simply don't matter, this is probably up there, but, I've said many times I'm a big confidence fly guy, and if it's tied the way that I want it to be tied, in the way that I envision it, I do fish it a lot better. So, all right, first material, I've got some duck biots here. We're going to pull a couple of those fibers off. We're going to use those for the tails. I always use duck biots on all of my nymphs. I know goose biots are the staple material for this, and if you have goose biots, you certainly can use them. I just really don't understand why. I just think goose biots are way oversized. Duck biots, I think, are much, much better, much more appropriately sized, and it's what I use for all nymph tailing. I don't use any goose biots anymore. Just something I've never really understood. I see Copper Johns tied and big, giant goose biot tails. I don't understand it. But these I tie in one by one. Not a good enough tire to put them in at the same time and sink them in. I've tried it many times, just can't. I can't get it to look the way I want it to look. So we'll go back up to where we started. Even that out a little bit. Okay. Next material we're going to tie in is some of this vinyl rib in brown. And this is going to be midge-sized, which might seem a little bit weird. I mean, we're tying a size 10 stonefly here, and we're using midge-size ribbing. Well, it's a little bit bigger than you would think. And, we're only using it for the ribbing. We're not really using it for the body. So the midge size, anytime you're using it for nymph ribbing, is much more appropriately sized. Put that aside. Nothing complicated about this step. I'm just going to slip the tip in there. Capture that with my thread. And on my way back down, this step isn't as important as it is in other flies, but I'm just going to kind of go about 1/4 of the way down, return my thread to the front, go 1/4 of the way down again, and all I'm doing here is just building up a little bit of bulk. We're going to dub the body. So the shape of the body, you can build that with the dubbing. So you don't really, it's not really completely necessary to do this, but I like to make sure that, that body is made up of some more stuff that's going to help it sink instead of a big giant dubbing ball. Which, speaking of sinking, if you want, you can tie this fly with a bead. You can tie it with a weighted underbody. You can do all that stuff if you want. I don't do this for the flies that I'm going to use for steelhead, because the rig that I use for steelhead, I like unweighted flies, and I weight it with split shot and some other things. If I was using this for trout, which I do fish this for trout too. In that case, I will use a bead and I will use a little bit of weight in the underbody. But For the steelhead ones, I leave them like this. So all I'm doing now is we're going to apply some of this dubbing in a nice tight dubbing noodle. And this isn't anything fancy. This is just awesome possum rust dubbing. I'd show you the package, but I don't have my dubbing in a package. I have it in this dispenser thing, so I don't have the package. But it's just simple, regular, everyday, awesome possum rust dubbing. Simple stuff. You can get hairline rust dubbing too. So we're just going to go get a couple of tight wraps here at the base. Get that started. Touching wraps, we're going to work our way up the body, building out that taper. The underbody will do most of the work for you, but you're still going to have to do some shaping. I can only put so much dubbing on my thread when I'm filming, so we're going to have to pause here for a little bit while I redo this. Probably not the most exciting part of the video, or any part of it really. I mean, what part of a fly tying video is entertaining or exciting? Alright, so now we'll keep plugging along with that. Keep filling in any dead spots, building the taper up. And I'm going to have to redub that one more time. I'm going to pause this so you don't have to sit through that again. Alright, back at it. So just keep wrapping, building that shape all the way up to where we stopped. Or not stopped, started our thread. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build a little bit of a tapered dam right where my dubbing ends. And that's so that I can have a nice smooth transition of materials. If I don't do that, my ribbing can jump all over the place, screw up my wraps. It's harder to tie in the legs. It's got a bunch of effects. So a nice tapered thread dam right there for a nice easy transition of materials is what you're going to want. And with that, we're going to start wrapping our rib material with nice even wraps. Let that bite into the dubbing. Make the head a little bit, or the top of the dubbing a little bit thicker, knowing that that ribbing is going to bite into it. Get that tied up. Give that a snip. Secure that tag end and keep building that taper. Okay, so now before we move on to the next step, I'm just going to take a little dubbing brush here and just kind of tease out some fibers there towards the back. That'll give that nice buggy look. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take some of this cinnamon tips turkey feather and pop off. I like nice thicker wing cases. I'm not going to go massive here, but I'm going to cut off a pretty sizable chunk of fibers, probably about that. I'm going to flip this around, tie it in by the tips. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same process 3 times. The process itself is not particularly difficult, but the spacing is something you kind of have to plan out. So we're going to take this, mat that down in the top of the hook shank, get it gathered with a loose wrap. Don't worry if it separates, it'll come back together after. Get that all tied down. Back up a little bit here, grab that. There we go. Okay, so for the whole front of this fly, we are going to have 1, 2, 3 sections of wing cases. So you kind of want to measure that out. Divide this up into thirds. So 1, 2, 3. I want to end kind of right about here. So that's going to kind of be my eyeball point. If you want to do something to make sure that you're, consistent, that's fine. But once you tie a bunch of these, you kind of get the hang of it. So I'm going to go back to my duck biots, take off 2 fibers, and I'm going to put in my first set of legs. We're going to put a set of legs in on the first in the third segment. So here's the first segment. So we're going to get that in there with a wrap. Come in here on the back side, slide that biot in, make sure that it's even. Looks pretty good right there. Get that tied in with a few tight wraps. And we're good. Let's come in here, snip off the excess. And we're good. So to complete that first segment, we're going to take another little chunk of dubbing here. We're going to get this going. Kind of excited to get going on this because the fish are really starting to move in. We're having a nice, real cool end to August. Fish are starting to move. So kind of getting the itch here. So let's wrap this. Get that right up next to where the turkey is. Get it to where we want to end our first segment. And to get that fold over, I'm going to take a straight bodkin here. I'm going to mash it right there at that transition point. Fold my turkey over, pull out the bodkin, give a loose wrap, and then really tighten it down. And that's going to be my first segment. We'll take this, fold it back over the top because we're just going to keep reusing the same piece. And we're also going to use it to build up a little bit of bulk. And again, let's build a taper here, make sure we got a nice smooth transition. And we're good. All right, so let's repeat the process again. Like I said, we're going to do this 3 times. And just to repeat some things I said in the beginning, yeah, I use this a lot for steelhead. It's one of my primary steelhead flies, but I've caught a ton of trout on this fly. So, you know, don't just use it for steelhead, or if you're not in an area where you have steelhead, this is definitely a productive trout fly too. All right, so we'll come in, get this wrapped. You want a little bit of bulk here with the second section. Now we'll come in with our bodkin again. What that does is it kind of just gives us something to fold it over onto, and gives it a little bit of body, so it's not just laying completely flat. Kind of gives it that like bubbled actual wing case look. So we'll fold this back again. Make sure you keep all those fibers straight. Kind of wish I used a little bit more turkey. Like I said, I like a big, thick wing case. You have to excuse my voice today, too. I don't know if I got something going on or what, but it is what it is. All right. Whoops. I forgot a step. You get gabbing, and that's what happens. Let's get that dubbing off there. So as I said, we're going to do wings on the first and third segment. So we're on the third segment now, so I'm going to continue this tapered thread dam and grab 2 more fibers of the duck biots. Snip those off. You want these legs to be a little bit longer than the legs you already put on there. Bite that down nice, get it to splay out. That's about good there. Get the other fiber in the back here. I do this a lot in a golden stonefly color. I've done videos on that in the past. I've also tied this Euro style too. I haven't fished it Euro style for steelhead yet, but Euro nymphing for steelhead is something I'm going to start exploring a little bit this year. So I'm kind of excited about that. So the Euro version of this fly will definitely be in the rotation. There we go. Get out of there. Before we dub, cover up those tips. If you got any loose fibers, sometimes it can make the biots kind of turn and move, and we don't want that. So we'll come in here with the dubbing on the final segment of the thorax. It's more or less proportions than anything with this fly. It's not particularly difficult to tie, but you want to make sure that you leave yourself enough room for 3 segments. You want to make sure all that stuff lines up. So we'll come up here, make sure we got enough dubbing right in front of the turkey to make sure that it folds over properly. Got a little room at the head. Come in here, fold this over. When that's secured, we'll come in here, we'll snip that turkey off. And the final step, let's dig back into these biots again. Let's get 2 more fibers. Put a couple antennae on this. Get ready to go with that. Put those aside. That's going to be the last thing I do. Kind of played that off nicely that I forgot another step. So what I've got here is I've got a piece of just natural partridge. All this webby stuff here at the bottom. Let's rip all that off. Get all that out of there. You're going to leave yourself just with the tip portion. And you want to just kind of pull that tight, pinch it down with your fingers, just to get a little tuft of that partridge. I'm going to turn this upside down. And I'm going to take this little chunk of partridge here. I'm going to lay it right on the bottom of the fly. Get a little loose wrap there just to kind of gather it. And then 3 more wraps to hold it. I'm going to pull it tight, make sure it's sitting in the middle of the fly. And I'm going to pull it to size it. And that's about good right there. So now that it's where I want it, now I'm going to come in, really cinch that down. Now, what purpose does this serve? I have absolutely no idea. But the fly freaking works. This is what it had on it when it was given to me. So I continue to do it. A little partridge throat. Definitely something I wouldn't have really thought to do myself, but I don't know, man. This thing catches fish, so if a partridge throat is what it takes, then a partridge throat is what it gets. So let's get into the final step here. A couple of biots for the antenna. Get that onto the front. I don't want them too massive. Size it up. Cinch them in. Come in here on the back side. Size them up evenly. That looks about good right there. There we go. Very prominent head on this fly. Now I like the white. I like the white head. If you want something different, obviously you can mix up any color thread you want. Black, rust, whatever. I mean, I like the white. You could also mess around, use maybe a chartreuse or like an orange or something to try to mimic like a steak and egg fly. I don't know if you know what that is, but a steak and egg kind of looks like a stonefly and an egg at the same time. So might even be able to mix that in. I like the white. I catch fish on the white, so I stick with it. But you can definitely mix it up however you like. All right, final order of business here. I want to kind of gloss that head up a little bit, so I'm going to take a little bit of this Solares. Whoops, I got a big goop coming down. Just get some of that soaked into that thread. I don't want to overdo it. Give that a quick zap. And we'll throw a little bit more on. And that'll pretty much do it. I got my box loaded up with these. These are going to be hitting the river pretty soon. I'm going to have some time to do this year. I'm actually on paternity leave right now, so when the fish really start rolling into the Salmon River, I'll have a little bit of time to get out there and enjoy that. And this fly is definitely going to be at the forefront, something I've been using for a long time. That is the rusty Stonefly, little partridge throat on there. I've made some adjustments to it to tie it the same way I tie my other Stoneflies, but fantastic fly for steelhead or trout. I never really would have thought to go with the rust color, but like I said before, it was given to me by somebody else. They swore by it. I've done really well with it. Fantastic fly. So any questions or anything, just throw them in the comments.